Hi, it's Jessica. I have an exciting announcement. On Sunday, October 19th, we're hosting the Ampersand Summit, an in-person event in San Francisco that will bring together people who straddle multiple worlds to meet each other, share what we're working on, and talk openly about what it's like to lead a multi-passionate life. I'd like to extend a personal invitation to you. Learn more at theampersandmanifesto.com. There's a link at the top of the page to sign up for the event. I hope you can join us.
Having different jobs, having to jump from one thing keeps you from spiraling down into a rabbit hole too far. You know, you get into something and then it's like, oh no, I have to go do this other thing. And it kind of sits and percolates. And then you come back to it with a whole other perspective.
I'm delighted to be speaking with Marianne Poon, financial advisor, piano teacher, and registered piano technician. The child of immigrants, Marianne grew up playing the piano and earned her diploma from the Royal Conservatory of Music. She won third place in the national finals of the Canadian music competition. Marianne studied finance and economics at the University of Toronto and built her expertise in corporate finance, where she helped manage $4 billion in institutional pension funds. Along the way, she earned her CFA credential and an MBA from UC Berkeley. Today, she works as a financial advisor, a piano teacher, and tunes and repairs pianos. Marianne lives in Bethesda, Maryland, where she enjoys swimming, attending the opera, and spending time with her wife and their dog, Honey. Marianne, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jessica. It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. You grew up with immigrant parents who didn't have much when they came to North America. And you shared with me that your parents had to make a lot of money choices and that they really prioritized education and the arts. How did your upbringing shape the career paths that you've gone down?
It's so interesting because immigrant Asian parents really like to emphasize piano, music, and achievements. And then you get to high school and, you get a performance diploma in piano. And then they're like, okay, now you can go be a doctor or a lawyer or a dentist.
Heard of this before.
Right. But along the way, like music has just become ingrained in me. Like I started at 3.5 and when I was 6 weeks old and they got their new house, they didn't have a lot of money and they had to pick, like they bought a piano before they bought furniture.
Wow.
So I was sleeping in a suitcase and they were sleeping on the floor.
Wow.
And when we were growing up, we would buy these really old beat up cars and my dad would go to community college to learn how to fix them. And, of course, being teenagers, we'd be embarrassed about the cars that, our parents would pick us up from. And then my mom would keep reminding us, okay, why are we driving putt-putt cars? And my sister and I would respond in unison so that we can have music lessons and dance lessons. So it was always very apparent, the decisions, and, I guess the trade-offs that they had to make. And so everybody has a money story, and I think that's what kind of makes us who we are. It's like a diary, how we got the assets that we have. And it's very interesting. And so then I studied finance and I worked in Hong Kong and, I was making really good money. For a 20-year-old, I didn't, like my roommate and I didn't have condiments or cutlery in the apartment. We ate every single meal out. We would drop off our laundry at the laundromat on the way to work and pick it up on the way back. We had a cleaning lady. We took taxis everywhere. So it was a very different lifestyle. And then after that, I made a switch to travel around the world and then teach piano and tune pianos. So I've kind of lived a lot of very different lives economically. And that kind of forces you to think about what's important and what money means to you. And I think that's how I like to get to the root of people and how to help them.
Yeah. Yeah. No matter where you go, there's always where you come from. And I think the kind of money DNA that you talk about, that was very ingrained from your parents and childhood. And you mentioned that your financial advising practice is values-based. So you start with a few key questions for each client. What types of questions do you ask to kind of get at that money DNA? And how does this make your partnership with them successful?
So I think the first things I like to ask are, what does money mean to you? Or what are the most important things in your life? Who are the most important people in your life? And that can really untangle a lot of things. Sometimes I like to ask, what is your first memory of money? And that can be extremely interesting. I have, like a tax attorney will tell me that she remembers getting an allowance of 25 cents. And there was always this dilemma that the candy was 25 cents and there was like a 1 cent tax. So then what to get? and then this person becomes the tax attorney. It's really fascinating.
I'm going to have to think on that one. The earliest memory of money. Yeah.
And people don't think about these things. We just kind of live our lives. And it's very easy just to, money comes in, money goes out. We don't think about it and we can live our lives. But there's a lot of opportunities that people don't look at that can be very beneficial. Sometimes I take a look at all of my clients' assets, like as a comprehensive plan. I leave no stone unturned. We could be like, looking at $8 million of assets and there's this tiny little line item and they'll be like, oh, don't worry about that. I'm like, no, what is that? They're like, no, it's really annoying. Don't worry about it. And I'm like, really, what is that? And turns out they're these paper bonds that have been sitting under their bed. And, paper bonds that accumulate for decades collect interest. And so we then take them and convert them digitally. And then it, affords a car for their kid to go to college, which is really meaningful. Or, some people who do charitable planning, it can really make a huge difference if you're charitably inclined and you're trying to do tax, efficiency at the same time. You can do both and really sort of put your money in terms of where things matter.
Yeah, coming back to values for sure. And it strikes me also that financial planning and also teaching piano and tuning pianos, it's all very personal, right? You're kind of digging up into somebody's history, their values, or going into their home. There's a lot of vulnerability involved. How do you build trust with your clients, and how do you cultivate a safe space for them to really reveal the truth to you?
I think when I used to work in corporate finance, my life was very compartmentalized. Like when I was in finance and at work, I was one person. When I was outside of that, I was a different person. And it was kind of like swimming up creek all the time. So, when I teach piano, I'm seeing the same people every week. And when I'm teaching or when I'm tuning pianos, I'm going into people's houses. And so I see a very personal side of people and a very real side of people. And all of my clients, I'm in the Washington, D.C. area. So everybody is very, career oriented and things like that. So I'm the piano tuning and teaching have given me the opportunity to get to know these people in a very personal way. And they don't often have a facade because, your piano teacher and piano tuner is very harmless, hopefully. And so I think showing up authentically and just sharing who I am and not compartmentalizing my life has really helped build trust. And everybody's a human. We all have human issues no matter what. And so I think that's helped a lot. I mean, a lot of times people don't want to see a financial advisor. They'd rather go to the dentist or they'd rather talk to a sex therapist, for example. it's a lot of work to dig into your finances, and you may or may not want to know what or put in the effort to be able to sort of really think strategically or be mindful or line up your values. That takes a lot of effort and thought, and I think sometimes people are intimidated by that. Even if I'm like, don't worry, I've got you. There are a dozen other reasons why somebody may not do that. So I think that people, for me, just to present that, okay, what you're doing isn't wrong, it isn't right. Here are options, and I think that's helpful.
It sounds like you're really helping people find the right fit for them, not necessarily an objective,
exactly,
right or wrong.
Right. Like everybody's situation is so different. Everybody's always saying, okay, you have to find a niche, but I have not encountered any clients that are the same or have the same challenges. They are so different from each other, even though we're in sort of the same geographical area. So, everybody is so different, and our finances are as diverse as we are as people.
The piano has been part of your life since you were very young, and you've also had so many roles and relationships with it as a pianist, as a teacher, and as a repair technician. How did you get into piano tuning and repair?
So when I was buying my own piano, the piano technician pulled out the action, and I was like, wow, what is all of this? And I just could not stop asking questions. And it's a very complex instrument. It has like over 10,000 pieces, and they're all interrelated, and you make one little adjustment here and it affects everything else. And it's a wonderful instrument. And I just couldn't stop asking, and I just kept being curious. And I was like, well, is this something I can do? And I tried it, and found some really great mentors along the way. And that's kind of how I got into it.
Something I've realized over the years is that there is a difference between being a performer, performing at a high level, and teaching at a high level. You've done both. How did your own journey as a pianist affect how you approach teaching?
I think when I was growing up, everything was so, we wanted to hit such a high level that there was a lot of, even for myself, I adopted this wanting just to be able to express myself fully. And so there was a time when I was in finance, I didn't play piano for 10 years because I always thought, okay, well, if I can't actually sit down and practice 3 hours and really play something substantial, then what's the point? And then flash forward 10 years, and at the Berkeley MBA, we had a talent show, and Jessica here, who sings opera beautifully, says, hey, Marianne, do you want to accompany me in the talent show? And I said, sure. And it was so much fun. That was actually one of the most valuable lessons of the MBA for me. Was that, wow, I can play just for fun, and it can be really enjoyable. And so that kind of got me back into piano, and I started teaching part-time. Just, I've always enjoyed teaching. Like when I was a teenager, I would be helping all the neighbors, with their practicing and stuff. So I started teaching part-time, and then I ended up in Bethesda and started teaching some more and really enjoyed it. And so now with my students, students are so different. And so I grew up doing this pretty structured conservatory program, and I refused to teach that at first because I thought surely no kid is going to want to do this program. And as I went along, some kids really thrive in that and they enjoy it. They want to take the tests. And there are adults who want to do it also. And so, I always give everybody the option. I can teach you the conservatory method, or we can do, other things, so I have like some siblings who are doing the conservatory program, and then like their sisters playing pop songs, and the pop songs, they're not easy either. Some of those rhythms are really complicated. So it's just trying to like challenge people and help them get the maximum enjoyment and fulfillment out of learning is the most important part.
Yeah.
And how that comes out, it doesn't really matter.
Let's take a moment to reflect on this. Think about a skill you've learned in the past few years. What learning method worked best for you? Outside of hosting this podcast, I partner with leaders in the workplace to turn professional challenges into leadership successes and career progression. I love working with executive leaders, people managers, and of course, ampersands. If any of this sounds interesting to you, reach out to me at jessicawan.com. That's JESSICAWAN. Now, back to the show. On a practical level, how do you manage having 3 separate but sometimes related businesses?
Well, it's interesting. I think I can say that I'm never really burnt out from any one of the jobs because I'm not doing any, like, I don't think I could do, well, we know I can't do finance for 12 hours a day, 5 days a week. I tried that. That was a little much. I don't think that I could tune a piano or work on pianos for 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. I don't think I could teach all day. And so this has worked for me. Some people think, how do you juggle this? But my brain is so happy just jumping from one thing to another, and sometimes they're overlapping. So, but there is definitely some method to the madness. Like there is some structure. So I tune in the mornings, and like on the way to tuning when I'm commuting, on the way there, on the way back, I'm listening to, webinars or podcasts. It could be finance, it could be music, it could be your podcast, for example. And then, I come home, I do some finance stuff, I teach a little bit, and I'm working 6 days a week. And I'm very happy doing that. We don't have children, so it's kind of like 3 jobs, I guess, is equivalent. Maybe. Actually, may not even be the equivalent to having a kid. But so, yeah. I teach children. I love children. So there are a lot of ways that you can be there. I love being an aunt to support family members. And yeah. And sometimes I find like, having different jobs, having to jump from one thing keeps you from spiraling down into a rabbit hole too far. You get into something and then it's like, oh no, I have to go do this other thing. And it kind of sits and percolates. And then you come back to it with a whole other perspective, just with some time when, I could have spent like 8 hours wasted just traveling down a rabbit hole that wasn't quite productive. And, sometimes, I don't know, probably a lot of us creative people have ADD, and so sometimes I find that less is not necessarily better. More is better, right?
Yeah.
So my brain is happy doing more.
Yeah. And, Albert Einstein famously, when he got stuck on a physics problem, he'd go and play the violin.
Right.
And there was something in that helped the productivity on the other side. I'm wondering, for you, how do you think your work as a financial advisor has helped you in the music world, or vice versa?
I think both, in all disciplines, problem solving is a huge thing. And I think also, each thing, all of the things are very complex, and you can't go from 0 to 100 all in one go. So sometimes you have a limited number of time or a limited number of resources, and you just have to think like, okay, I am solving for the next best local optimum. So what is the next best step that I can take that will give the biggest impact? And we will do that thing first. And then it's like peeling an onion, and then we'll do the next big thing that will have the biggest impact. And then we'll keep going from there. And I find that a very good approach to tackling these, things that are really complex and difficult.
Yeah, so it sounds like you really tackle the priorities and what's in front of you in each kind of domain.
Yes.
And that helps you move forward.
Yes.
Yeah. What else do you think ties together your fields of work?
I think like my mentor, who used to be RBG's personal piano technician, and she tuned for the Supreme Court. She always says, instead of just going to do a tuning and leaving, charge a little more, spend 2 hours there, tune the piano, and then find something that will make the piano much better. And so whether that could be like doing some voicing and you can completely transform the tone of the piano, or, doing a little bit of regulation to even out the feel of it. And so I think people don't even know what can be better. Sometimes I'm done with the piano and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that, my piano could sound like that. And the same thing with financial planning. A lot of people are like, no, I don't need it. I don't need it. I don't need it. But I've never met anybody where I could not add value. And there's just so many things that are available to make better that people don't know about. And so I think, my mentor always encourages, like, just do transformative work and then the clients will come,
Yeah. And, all three businesses that you run rely pretty heavily on word of mouth or referrals. How have you built out your rosters over time? And is there also cross-pollination?
Yeah, there is. I mean, I think one of my piano teaching clients, I teach, the husband and the wife. I tune their piano, and I also do financial advising for them.
An all-in-one partner.
An all-in-one partner. I've looked after their cat on occasion. So, so yes, there is cross-pollination. Not all the time, but in certain instances it works. And if it works, it works. It's amazing. And, sometimes they're all very personal disciplines. So the more you know somebody, the more value you can add and help guide them. So yeah, sometimes I end up talking to my tuning clients about finance, and sometimes I end up talking to my finance clients about piano, and they're all wonderful things. And my wife's a dog trainer too. So sometimes I'll go tune a piano and then end up, having her, they'll end up hiring her to train their dogs. So yes, I guess you really have to be comfortable in all the things that you do because you're just out there all the time.
Yeah. Something I hear sometimes for ampersands is we all go on this journey of being comfortable or not yet comfortable bringing all of us to the table, meaning, say you are tuning a piano and it comes up that you also do financial advising.
Right.
How has your own journey looked around being authentic, being all of you?
I mean, it's a risk. There's always risks. So sometimes if I mention it, I'll get like different responses. Some people are like, oh my gosh, I need that. Like you have a card for that. And then some people are like, oh no, I don't need that. And they're trying to like, just, avoid you like the plague because they think you're trying to sell them something. So there are all different reactions. And I'm like, no, I'm not, that's not what I want. Like, that's not what I'm trying for. This is just what I do, So yeah, there is a risk. But I think the alternative is not doing this, and that, is not authentic. So I guess this way is better.
Yeah.
Certainly has worked out for me. And it's been a very deliberate journey. I didn't stumble into this by accident.
Mm-hmm.
Although I guess the search has, you kind of have to try a lot of different things. It's like my dad always used to say, you throw a bunch of spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks. So sometimes there is a little bit of that, but there is a lot of also, calculated method to the madness. So it's a balance.
Yeah. Through these interviews, we are co-creating the Ampersand Manifesto, Principles for Leading a Multi-Passionate Life. What are some principles that you live by?
I think that sometimes people are always asking me like, I need a hobby. Can you help me find a hobby? I wish I had something that I had done growing up so that I could do that thing also. And I think to those people, it's like, if you haven't found your own hobby, you can go hang out with other people who are very passionate about what they do and, volunteer there, and you'll be surprised at what you find. And don't be afraid to lean into some of these like periods or times where there's, I guess not everything has to lead to something tangible or monetary, right? If you're curious about something, just do that. Follow that curiosity. See where it takes you. It doesn't happen too often, right? That we kind of like where that there's that like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. That kind of moment. So when you get that, follow that. Just be there and see what happens.
I love that. Marianne, it's been such a pleasure talking with you. Folks, you can learn more about Marianne at onyxfn.com and mariannepoon.com, and we'll link to these in the show notes. I had a chance to listen back on my interview with Marianne, and I wanted to share a few key takeaways. 1, there's an interesting through line in Marianne's work, one of bespokeness and how she tailors what she offers to the individuals she works with. Like a clothes tailor would fit those clothes perfectly to a person, Marianne does that with financial advising, teaching music, and tuning pianos. They're all highly personalized services, and she seems to thrive in this type of work. 2, I hadn't remembered until we did this interview just how long it had been when Marianne picked up the piano again to perform with me for the Haas Talent Show. It had been 10 years. How lucky I was that she said yes. I remember we did the opera aria E ben ne andrò lontana from La Valli. Not an easy one for a comeback tour. I really admire how Marianne started again after a decade. And not just that, but she grew her passion for the instrument into 2 new careers. 3, I've been thinking a lot about what Marianne said around ampersands preventing us from going down unnecessary rabbit holes. For us, variety actually leads to better outcomes. You'd think doing many things would drain us. It doesn't. It fuels us. And when you get stuck, there's another place to go to do something productive. So we're always moving forward in one world or another. Put another way, a gift of the ampersand life is that it forces you to prioritize the most important and impactful things in each area. If you liked this show, share it with your friends and fellow ampersands, and make sure to hit the follow button to be notified when new episodes drop. It would mean the world to us if you took 2 minutes to rate and review the show. Just go to the main show page on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and look for the stars.